Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive. This is part one of a two-part series reviewing these Injora TRX4 clone axles. So these are cheap Chinese axles that are essentially a direct copy of Traxxas TRX4 axles. So this is part one. I'm going to go through the most important bits that you need to know. I'm not going to crack them open. That's going to be in part two. I've already filmed a bunch of it. It's just needs a lot of editing, and there's a bunch of tediousness that I think most people probably don't want to know. So I'm going to go through the highlights, what I've learned about these, what you need to know. So if that's what you're into, this is the video for you. If you want to know more and see the inside and the whole works, tune in for the next video. Like and subscribe. Do the hokey pokey. Turn yourself around. Alright, so let's start with expectations. So to me, the most important factor that you need to weigh in when you're ordering these is expectations. So do you expect these to be as good as TRX4 axles? Because I think that's unrealistic. To me, TRX4 axles are excellent. So on a scale of 1 to 5, they're a 5. They're awesome. They're super tough, super high quality. There's really nothing to criticize in a set of TRX4 axles. These, long story short, I would rate a 3 to a 4, and I will tell you why. Number one reason that some people will be scared away from these is that the input shaft here does not work with a TRX4 drive shaft without a little bit of surgery. On the input here, the hole is bigger, it's in a different spot, you need to widen it out a little bit. And all I did is I used this rotary tool, and just in that hole there, you just grind, and just widen it out outwards that way a little bit. So not super hard, but if you don't have a rotary tool, don't have one of these little milling bits, you got a bit of a problem. So that's pretty much going to need to be done if you want to run the stock Traxxas drive shafts. You can get a set of these, very inexpensive. I think it's about 10 of them. Different sizes for like 10 bucks. They're not very expensive. I bought mine off Banggood. They're not great, they're not terrible. I use them mostly for plastic, so obviously my expectations are not super high. They don't have to be the most awesome machining bits ever. These are like end mill bits. So, you know, obviously take that into consideration. If you're trying to grind on hardened steel, you're going to have some problems probably. If you're grinding on soft steel, plastic, you know, or, you know, not doing much grinding, these are going to work just fine. So that's what you can use to widen out this hole a little bit. And I've done the front one, got it fitting, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's probably the biggest thing. If you do not have the savvy, the know-how, the tools, whatever, to modify that, you're probably not going to want to use this as a direct replacement on a Traxxas TRX4 because it's not going to fit. You're going to need to do just a little bit of massaging. So on the Injora T-lock cable, notice not a lot of extra room there, which in theory is good. The problem is that in order for the T-lock to engage or disengage, it has to go all the way in. Now when it's installed in the car, this pin can butt up against the mount that holds the T-lock cable in place, so it's a bit tricky to get this working properly. Alright, now for perspective, this is the Traxxas one, okay? So you can see that's as far in as it goes. There's no interference, there's no way anything gets in the way. This just pushes in, the T-lock is disengaged. This pulls out and it's engaged, right? We're 100% going to work, right? Lots of room, nothing can get in the way there. And again, the Injora, right, that's locked up, that's unlocked, so it pushes in. Problem is this pin can hit the mount that holds the cable in place, right? This little knobby is held in place. There's some plastic in the way. You got to do a little bit of massaging to get this to work properly. Bit of an adventure, guys. A big weakness is that the outer bearings, this is the Traxxas one, you can see that's a sealed bearing. That's the outer on the portal on the front, the steering one. On the Injora ones, those are not sealed bearings. That's one spot you definitely want a sealed bearing. Most of the bearings in the Injora are sealed. There are a few strays here and there that are not. Those are the two that matter. And I mean, I'm guessing it's some sort of supply problem because it just seems odd, but whatever, it is what it is. That is something to take note of. And a full set of bearings on axe speed, for example, for the axles, not including the transmission bearings, will run you about $20 Canadian, about $15 US, so not a whole lot of money. And then you'll have some spares because, as I mentioned, you only need a couple. Yeah, there you go. So overall, I mean, I rate these about a 3.5 out of 5. They're pretty good. They're not perfect. The Traxxas, to me, for reference, are a 5 out of 5. They're really strong, really good. The quality's excellent. These are just not quite as good. They got a few little doodads. They're not perfect. And I mean, I'll adjust that mark quite freely up or down based on durability. If these prove to be very, very strong, then, you know, my minor criticisms of build quality probably are irrelevant. If they're not super strong, which is probably a reasonable expectation given that they're Chinese clones, then maybe they're only a 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. You know, it depends how durable they are, right? Right? That's what we all care about. Are they indestructible? If they're really, really tough, then they get a good mark. If they're really, really weak, they get a bad mark. They certainly don't bolt in too badly. This level of fit issue, pretty standard with jobber type parts. One of the things that I noticed working on cars is that until you've worked on a Honda, you don't really appreciate just how well built Hondas are. And I was never a big Japanese car booster, and boy oh boy, when I started working on Hondas, it really came screaming home how much better quality they are than crappy cars. And I won't name names, but we all know there are some much lesser quality cars out there. Now, to me, Traxxas is very much on par with Honda. It's like the Honda of RC cars. Traxxas are really well made. Everything fits just beautifully, really well engineered. And these axles, I would say it's the same type of thing. Like these Traxxas jobbies are perfect. Like, they're so good. There's nothing to criticize really. They're excellent. These Injoras are 100% a good clone. They're a good jobber part. They're very similar. They're not quite perfect. So, you know, do they get a 5 out of 5? Hells no, you cannot possibly give them a 5 out of 5. The absolute best mark anybody could give these is a 4. Just based on the fact that they're not as good as the Traxxas. Now, the big thing is, as soon as you start having a couple of fitment issues like this pinion, not perfect, you gotta do a little massaging with a cutting tool. You know, that's not ideal. And this T-lock cable doesn't fit perfectly. You gotta do a little bit of fudging around to get your lock-unlock function working properly. Definitely got to take some marks off for that. So that's where I come out with like the, you know, somewhere in the 2.5 to 3.5 range, maybe a 4. Again, if they're really durable. So that's my 2 cents worth, guys. That's my rating on these. And 100%, if you need durability, you need top-notch quality because you're going to beat the crap out of them, spend the extra money. Get into the Traxxas. Just you know, it's going to be more solid. You're going to have less problems. If you're really on a budget, don't want to take the time to save up a little more extra money and go Traxxas, okay, don't say I didn't warn you. And again, overall, really good. And if you're not going to beat on your RC car, if you're going to treat it very respectfully, do a little trail driving, you know, some crawling, but really not going to be beating on it, you know, bouncing it off things, you know, really going hard, these will probably work just fine for you guys. That's what I always say about the Chinese stuff. Is it terrible? No, you just got to treat it with a little bit of respect. If you treat it with a level of abuse that you would expect a much older RC car to tolerate, you know, I came up in the 80s and 90s, you know, running old Tamayas and stuff, and of course associated, you know, RC10 was in the late 80s was a whole nother level, guys. It was such a good car compared to your Tamayas and whatnot. It was night and friggin' day. It was a true race car and so durable, absolutely nuts, right? So if you take these axles as something on par with, you know, just a step back, a little less awesome than the Traxxas stuff that we've all grown used to, you're probably not going to be super disappointed. If you expect it to be as durable as the Traxxas parts, well, a little bit of disappointment's probably going to come your way. So there's a fairly quick overview of these bad boys, what you can expect. You know, a couple of little problems, but overall they're pretty good. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive?